Hope we get some people. Hello. Welcome. This is your host, Liv, and I have my first guest ever, Kiko. Hello. Welcome from the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. You're across the country. How
That
are
is correct.
you?
Yeah, and
What?
I have a little furry guy who's from.
Yes, please introduce your friend.
Hello, this is Ollie. Ollie, say hello.
Hi, Ollie. Hello, sweet boy. Oh, he's a
He-
sweet, sweet,
Yeah, he's a
happy
sweet
boy.
boy.
He's
So
very
yeah.
happy that you're home,
Oh,
apparently.
he's very happy
Very
indeed.
happy. I think he's very happy to be in your arms right now. Oh my God, too cute. So I asked Kiko, who graciously offered to be here tonight, about anything he's particularly passionate about, and he said student government and politics. So, Kiko, what brought you to student government and politics?
That's a great first question. Thank you. um, the reason why I got into student government in the first place is because I was I would say I liked being involved in kind of like group projects and stuff. And so student government was one of those things where that being involved in a a student group project would be like beneficial for people, not just myself, but as a middle schooler, I've always liked participating in kind of like the, I guess I want to say discourse, but more like the activities at hand. So I started being in student government leadership ever since like middle school. So
Wow, that's early.
yeah,
That's early. So you did it middle school, high school?
yeah, middle school, high school, and college.
Wow. Okay. And what was that like? Because I was never involved really in student government. So what was that like?
Well, for me personally, it was a different experience in each level. Middle school was just about participating in group activities and then having your 2 cents in with the student body at large. Because I not wasn't in any like actual leadership role at that time, but I was interested in participating in the projects. In high school, it's a different deal because when I first got into a leadership role, it was as a student senator at my local high school, and I only did it for I think about for like 2 years, and that was about it. But it was an eye-opening experience to sit down and talk about what was the topic at hand on some of these Senate meetings that we're sitting in on.
Yeah.
Some of them were just about homecoming, others were about prom. Some of it was actually about the day-to-day stuff that we wanted to do to talk about student-led issues on the high school campus. But we did, I think I remember in my last year in high school in student government, was we just voted in a new marquee, a digital marquee that was apparently way ahead of its time back in, I think, 2003. So it was a digital marquee ahead of its time, and I think it came marginally like not so pricey, but in a good value. I think like what $6,000.
What is that? I have not heard of that.
Yeah, so a digital marquee would basically like if you've seen the marquees on like say you go to the movies, it's just like that, but a little less like sophisticated in a sense though, because
Wow.
you still have the prompts of like telling people what events are happening in the high school, but then we also have like information that's being displayed like in a flashing saying, "Oh, hey, this is such and show day for like late period or such and show day of like this is when students get out." So we use that as the marquee to inform people of what's going on in our high school, and we used to do it in my first year. We had an actual, the marquee board where you had to slide in the letters in basically. So that my first year was that sliding letters into the marquee board, just the regular old school kind. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it became kind of an issue of people like wanting to kind of get rid of it because it had some safety hazards. We actually debated on it and actually brought it to a vote on to purchase a new digital marquee.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that we can talk about in terms of safety for the students that actually can benefit not just us, but the community at large.
Mm-hmm. So when you were, I'll ask this question and then we can get into your experience at the college level. When you were in the high school level, were you involved in local politics at all?
No, because that's a whole separate thing, and like for me, I didn't get into the local politics with high school because in high school it was basically just, you know, placating with the popular game more than anything else. You got popular kids that wanted to do the school dances, and they just want to just do the social events on those like homecoming week. We had to plan for like each day what kind of activity we'll be doing for like say for example like Thursday would be 70s day, and so all the students would dress up from the 70s. So it was basically like a school pride week for people to kind of like enjoy each other's company.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what about in college?
College was a different deal, and I've been in two different colleges and two widely vast different experiences. So the first college I went to was college at Siskiyous, where it was basically just a natural continuation of high school stuff, where you had people who wanted to do the campus life events more than anything else, and you're trying to figure out what the issues of the day are to kind of like coalesce around for students who want to actually see happen on the campus. During my tenure there for a couple of years, we talked about having designated smoking areas, and we actually implemented those there. And then we talked about having one of the few. We started as one of the many few colleges in the early years is doing a rental rental buyback program in its pilot year before I left, because we wanted to lessen the cost of books in our local community college. Because one of the major things that we did, we went to a state level community college convention where a lot of these ideas were being. Oh my gosh, dog! You're so mean. At a local level,
Mm-hmm.
where we had to basically take stuff to the state level and discuss what statewide issues are being affected on the local community colleges. Now, one of the major things that when I was there, we talked a lot about tuition and how costly it is. And the tuition issue has not changed during my whole time in college. Because in California, the tuition has skyrocketed over the last 20 years. And so before Reagan got into office, tuition was relatively cheap or free to go in California. So when I got into the community college sector here in California, the debate was how do we lessen the tuition hikes. Now I've moved to the left of lowering the tuition hikes and actually want to abolish tuition. I can make it free for everyone. But during my time in student government, that wasn't the case in both the community colleges I was in. So the issue was, what threshold of the tuition do we want to actually deem acceptable in terms of the financial aid that we're getting for students across the board.
Mm-hmm.
In my time in California, it wasn't much of a burden for students who were using financial aid to buy the books and then pay for their tuition at the community college level. And on top of that, we had the BOG waiver, which basically was covering for the cost of other necessities like travel or like on-campus housing for low-income students. So a lot of the BOG waiver was being placed as in to eliminate a lot of the tuition stuff and then your financial aid was the one that takes care of your financial needs, your book needs, and then your travel need, and out of eating your eating expenses. Um, it was relatively cheap for the longest time. Before I left, the tuition was about to be jacked up again, and went back to the community college level state convention, and it was brought up to the chancellor, the education chancellor, about kind of like stopping the tuition hikes because, as you well know, in that time period and back in between 2010 to 2004, no 2000 from 2006 to 2008, tuition hikes got significantly raised up a couple of percentage points. So the student governments across the community college level got together and tried to pension to the education chancellor to either freeze tuition at a rate where it's deemed acceptable, or at least cut it by 10 or 15%. And we only were successful in only freezing tuition for only about like 2 years, I believe. And then I left California from there. Jump into 2013, 2014, and my only final last year in a different community college. My experience in that was wide opening, because in that community college level over in Lane Community College, it was more inherently political than say what I experienced back in at college at the Siskiyous. With college Siskiyous, it had some political stuff going on because we had a student member represent as a board member on behalf of our issues, and we actually had a dialogue with our board of trustees about what needs to happen, what they want from us, what negotiating period we had, and what's the takeaway, what's the back and forth. And we actually had like an open line of dialogue with the Board of Education. Now, with the Board of Education in Lanes, it's a different deal because it sets up as a consensus where if one person says no to everything, then all the stuff that we're trying to move forward gets nixed. So it goes back to different committees to kind of reward certain policy decisions being made like on a macro level on different things. And so it's been a constant fight with different board members to actually get something what we want. One of the things that I remember in my tenure for that year as a student senator was to fight again for tuition and the rate of going up there up in Oregon. Now they were asking for a decrease of probably like 5% of the tuition, or at least freeze it. And that was usually the tactic being used by the student government in that time period, where they wanted to basically say, okay, here's our hard line, here's the negotiation, and then here's what we want to actually establish with our people. And it was a weird process, because if you wanted to like make a statement about the tuition hikes, you either had to do a active campaign to get people on the phone lines and call people, and then ask there for support to stop the tuition hikes across the board statewide, or you can basically either do a booth outside of one of one of the campuses, and just say, hey, I need your signatures to tell to the board of education to stop the tuition hikes and stop or freeze the tuition as is. Because again, the same problem was with tuition was it was going high at the college, but nothing was getting much done to either drastically decrease it or to give more money or get money from the federal government to increase the financial aid. And most students nowadays, from like 2010 on, have started to borrow a lot of money from the government to pay for their cost of living with student loans.
Wow. All right. So you were definitely more involved with local politics when you were at the college level.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's right there. Yes.
Wow. So do you want to talk more about now what you've learned about the politics that was involved with the student government at each level throughout the process?
Yeah, I mean, for students who are looking to be involved on a local level, or at least be involved in student government, um, I would say it always be mindful of what's in the room, because when you participate in a student government on the college level, you'll find yourself being roadblocked by people you thought you trust on your own student government board,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a lesson that was a hard lesson to have, because there was an issue that I was passionate about wanting to reallocate student fees to ensure that we actually had transparency on it, and especially with a student club that was actually kind of monopolizing a pension, a vote pension on our own ballot, to say, oh, hey, if you vote for this initiative, this student club entity will get about $3.50 per person. But the question was, where did the money go? Where's it allocated to? And that was the fight that I had with the local student government, with the board of education, and I won that fight. But there's still more work to be done. So what happened is that they nixed that referendum, but they gave me and the student government leeway on governing on our tuition fees and what comes in from our student dollars. But the problem is that you needed people to come in and actually self-govern and make sure that there's actual like fiscal transparency, and that's where it's at right now, where a lot of the student clubs are trying to politicize, they're trying to get that money, but they don't want to do the work of like actual fiscal transparency. So they want to go back to the old days where the student fees on where it went. You can just have a blank check and just do whatever you want. What happened was I sued the school and said, this is not the way how we should be doing in terms of our student fees. We need to actually have an actual transparency to ensure that students know what we're doing. I won that fight, but it came at a cost, and it came at my own emotional expense. It took about 2 years to get that, 2-3 years to get it actually taken care of, to actually have won that fight. But the fight still goes on, and when you as a student walk into such a situation like that, what I've been through, be mindful, and like I said, be mindful of the room, because there are people who have intentions to use that student government leadership role as a political springboard to be leap into actual local politics or statewide politics or on the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are such issues that people care about more than anything else, like the tuition, the room board, the transportation stuff, how much that would cost. Um, if you make it about just the people who want to actually feel like they're being listened to, do that. But if you're just playing the political game of like doing minute issues that only placates to, say, it's just an identity politics stuff, then your vote will decrease, and you only get a small amount of individuals come voting for you for in that upcoming election.
So what's some of the advice you would give to students who are interested in getting involved with student government and things to be aware of the politics involved?
I would say, as a former student leader, both as a president, vice president, and senator, be passionate about what you want to do for your campus. Don't make it about yourself. Make it about what needs to happen for your campus. And if the if you have problems with the board's education, address it in a manner that's deemed, I wouldn't say respectful, but deemed like you're willing to take a fight. Like choose the battles that you know you're going to win. You, but also know that you have to be willing to take some losses too as well. And that's the hard lesson I've learned was I had to take a lot of huge losses from a lot of stuff from the boards of education, both on both different campuses, because there's some stuff they won't agree on, but there's a hard line that they will not cross, and that is the financial stuff, and that's the even bigger fight, because you want transparency on the money that's coming in for the students that want to see the money be used for actual good things, and so that's a uh, hard hard knocks of a fight to have people want to be transparent with the money that's where it's been spent at. So my advice is basically just take the hard stance,
Mm-hmm.
do what's unpopular, because later on people who will be moving to the left on like say college tuition should be free, you actually have a base there that'll rally up right behind you.
Yeah. Take the path less traveled by. Yeah. All your gut. Yeah, that's great. I do wish I had gotten more involved with student government. I was late to the politics game. I feel like, but I guess my next question would be like for me, my first exposure to politics was when I was graduating college in 2018 and decided to run with the Green Party for state delegate. So that was my first time. Oh, well, I guess technically my first time I did anything political was when I voted in the 2016 election for Gary Johnson. Never been a part of the duopoly. So that was my first experience with politics, being independent, left-ish. And then going into the left, again, when I'm like, like how old? Like 22-ish, getting involved into more local politics, and just kind of like full on plunging with that. But something that the Green Party has is a young eco-socialist chapter. And that's something that we're trying to get started here in Maryland, because Maryland does not have a chapter yet. And my question for you is, how do you think we could get, because I would really like to target student government associations, what do you think would get them interested in joining something like a young eco-socialist chapter?
Oh man, well, for the circles I run in right now, they don't believe in electoral politics. They just don't. But on my personal opinion on how to actually get people to be involved, um, if they still want to actually want to fight a dog in this fight on the electoral side, I would say for those who want to get involved locally is look at your local organizations that are who have 501(c)(3)s and 3s, because the nonprofit institutions are the ones that are basically driving the narrative and the money behind things, because when you donate your dollars towards those nonprofit organizations, you're actually giving yourself a chance to be into a local activism phase. Um, so when it comes to like say being a Democrat or Republican, it's about playing with the partisan lines. But if you want to be just an independent, take on a activist side on a sense though. Like if you see a 4 and 3, 4 or 5 that's on a local level that actually says like let's say like moms against guns or something like that. They're willing to train you and then educate you on how activism works in their area, and then figure out what tools work for you when you get out from that organization and apply it to the real world. Because in the real world, it's a different beast. When you go off and try like pension for something, like say for example, like I think Oregon passed like a law that couple years back that made marijuana legal. Well, there was a lot of like organizations that coalesced together for on a nonprofit side to say, okay, there's a desperate need to change something here and to make weed legal. So we're going to get a bunch of people together and organize under this banner to unite people on one single issue. And that usually is the case of how it works with the politics of the state of politics today. So on the electoralism side, you want the outside pressure from these activist organizations to tell people in the Senate and in the House in your state offices, you'd be like, okay, we have an issue that we're passionate about, and we got all these organizations willing to fight both the Senate and the House. It does a better route for you that way, because when you saw the election results come out in turn by referendum in Oregon passing that law, we successfully won that. It's the same thing here in California. We did a referendum of making weed legal here, and it's by a huge margin. But that's only because the groundwork on an activist level made that possible.
Mm-hmm.
So when you want to be involved with the politics, be more of an on the activist side and force outside pressure. Because in the inside game, they're going to manipulate you. They're going to tell you what to do, and tell you, you should, get rid of some of your values, or get rid of or compromise on your morals, and and play the game. Well, if you're on the activist side, you don't need to play the game. You're playing for the issue that matters across the political spectrum. Doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, et cetera, et cetera. You want something that's going to be on a broad base that everybody can agree on more than anything else. Because, like, say, if it's not like Medicare for all, there's like 72% of people on the last polling average I saw that agreed that Medicare for all should be implemented. But that's still a long road ahead, because you still have to do the outside pressure campaign with the people who are inside Congress who are making the laws to ensure that things stay the same. So you have to both do the inside game and the outside game to ensure that the things you want can change. That there's some people who do care more about the outside pressure by burning buildings up, et cetera, to make an actual statement, and it has been successful before. That there are anarchists and there is communists who are willing to make real outside pressure happen. So those individuals can lead the fight. Well, on behind the scenes level, people not like myself, but there are others who are doing the local organizations on a nonprofit side. Okay, they can seize the opportunity of seeing what the outside pressure is doing, and be like, and then take it to the insiders. Like, look, you got this mass chaos going on outside, and people are not going to calm down so they get what they want. And things have happened like that for the last 60, 70 years, where you had mass riots happening, and you had things that people demand change for, and change happened because people rioted and people actually destroyed buildings or destroyed property to make a statement saying, look, we had enough being underserved, and we had enough being subjugated with things that makes us feel like we're feeling pretty bad about. So when you want to join something, always come with a point of conviction more than anything else.
I love it. Always come with the passion. Full circle, like you were talking about. I love it. Any last closing remarks about student government and or politics?
Oh man, I mean, there's
a lot to sum up.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of political issues of the day that I love to talk about, but that's on a different thing for me. And then the important thing is that when you get involved politically on Twitter, on Facebook, or on any other social media website, be about being a humanist first. Be about connecting with people that understands where the pain and suffering comes from. Because at the end of the day, we're all under the same system, which is capitalism. And we need to actually ensure that everybody gets fed, everybody has a house, everybody has actual security, as in terms of like, a paycheck, or at least, something that they can cling on to to have hope on. My intentions has always been clear, is that if you want something to change, do it. If you want to be a leader, be a leader, because it's not easy. And
Yeah.
there's some people who don't want leaders. They just want a collective of people, group of people together to make a statement about how we demand change. And that's where I'm with a bunch of people right now. They want a collective of individuals to come together and be like, we need to make a grand statement and change things from the outside. Because right now, currently, inside game's not doing us any favors. So if you care about more than anything else to change the this current state of situation we're in, and in terms of our national politics, or in terms of our living situations, talk to people, ask them what is going on, ask them how you feel about our state of our capitalist nature, and how that affects you more than anything else. Because at the end of the day, you will get responses from different individuals from the political spectrum about how they actually feel about being screwed over by state, or by county, or by our national politics. Because there's a united force behind there. There's millions of people who have not voted. And so those millions of people of what we said screwed the system and did not being represented. And those are the people that we need to go out and reach to and say, I think it's time to actually demand change, because we're heading to a climate crisis pretty soon. And if we don't,
We're in it.
Yeah. if we don't do anything about it now, then everything that's comes to pass that we're assuming that may happen will happen, and there's nothing to do to change it.
Yeah. Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah. Get out there, kids. Well, thank you so much, Kiko, for being here. I'm sorry we didn't have much of a following tonight, but I'll definitely have you back on. Thank you for being here. Thank you. We'll end the broadcast. Thank you. Any last words?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at the Don Warika. We'll stay down below. I do host spaces from time to time, so if you're interested, check out the spaces. We got
on Twitter, right? That's what you're talking about. Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Follow on Twitter. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.